Everybody, so great to see you. I'm Sami Mansfield, and as Jen said, I have a kind of long, winding career that brought me in front of you today. And while I mostly do consulting, I spend a lot of time working in consulting for healthcare organizations. My favorite work is working with people who have had a direct experience of cancer themselves as their own diagnosis or caregivers, because quite frankly, I think it really just keeps you grounded in the work that you do and helps me sort of bridge all of these things together. As Jen said, I have endless curiosity, which means I hope you have endless curiosity. And I think it's really important to know that I will allow time for questions. I did create a slide deck, but we are not going to spend a lot of time talking too. I'm hoping to spend some time talking with all of you. We also will practice some of the wellness strategies together that you've already heard about as well. So as we get started, like I said, I put together a slide deck. What's really interesting about tonight, in addition to the fact that, we have this amazing group starting together on a Sunday night talking about these ideas, is like so many things, there's not a perfect list of lifestyle habits. Here I have six. Now you've heard you're going to have seven. Is there eight? Is there nine? I've seen wellness wheels that have four or 10. And I'm here to tell you that, like, there is no perfect. What I hope that you take from tonight is not just some ideas and things that will inspire you, but also that reminder if there are things here that are like, not really that interested, it is okay to say no because there is not a perfect lifestyle prescription for anyone, whether they're in cancer prevention, they have a diagnosis, they're living with advanced cancer survivorship. It doesn't exist. So take from tonight where I might lean a little bit more on certain pieces of the evidence, and then also areas that are just more of the feel goods and maybe things that you're like, not really my jam. And I'll share a few of not really my jam with you as we go along. So before we kind of start into the highlight of the pillars, I think it's really important to create some clear definitions or kind of ideas of what I'm talking about. I think there's so many ways to say the same thing. And sometimes people try to get fancy. We want to be different. And so I don't think that's always wrong, but I think it creates more confusion, which already exists, especially in lifestyle. So when we think about lifestyle medicine, there is a medical specialty that uses what we call therapeutic interventions. These may be trained and board certified practitioners that might give you a lifestyle sort of prescription based upon these habits that would fit your goals, your barriers, your interests, your cancer type, or other diseases, whatever that may be. But for the sake of conversation tonight, we are not focusing on a prescriptive. We're really focused on emphasizing the priority amongst the habits. So, again, there isn't a perfect, but let's really think about as you're listening to these different topics. I'll lean on where the evidence might exist and then also where things that might make you a little bit more excited. So, in the cancer space of the six pillars that you see here, only three have significant clinical evidence behind them. Those are nutrition, exercise, and activity. And I'll talk a little bit about what that means. I know you guys are already kind of familiar. And then also reducing risky habits. So, again, we'll go into these individually, both what they are and what they mean. And the other piece that is evidence based is weight management. But this isn't just scale weight, this is actually much more specific to body composition and the amount of muscle mass that you have related to fat mass. So when you're thinking about sleep health is important. It does a lot for symptoms, but we just don't have a lot of just tremendous studies and very significant studies about the outcomes in cancer. Although I do think that is actually going to be coming in the next maybe 10 to 20 years. So, who can benefit from lifestyle? Although have this slide together for more of a diverse audience, I left it in here because I think it's important to know that there are three areas, and maybe you fall in all of these areas, and maybe you fall in one or two, but in lifestyle, in lifestyle habits, as we're going to kind of focus on tonight, who benefits? Well, individuals with cancer absolutely benefit related to side effect management. When I started my career, as Jen mentioned, it's been over 20 years, almost 23 years in just a few months. We didn't have a single research study that said that exercise was actually beneficial. we thought it was safe, but we just really were like, we're not going to touch you if you're on treatment. Oh no. And that, of course, eliminated a lot of people on treat, especially with advanced cancer. Now, as you heard, we have guidelines on the role of exercise during treatment, but those were only published in 2022. So these are really still new recommendations. And we're not going to get into all of that. We're going to focus much more on the how tonight because that really is what matters, how we do it. We can see that caregivers have a significant benefit for these lifestyle habits. And then I also want to say, as professionals, whether that's you're a professional in healthcare or you're a professional in anything that you do, a lot of what we are experiencing in individuals, right, as individuals right now is stress, burnout. The emotional health that can come from these types of stress, maybe not really sure what kind of job that we want to be working in. And the lifestyle strategies are actually really beneficial in all of these spaces as well. So before we kind of take a direction into my six pillars, I want to focus on this slide that I put together kind of recently because I keep talking about this idea of, are we looking at the forest or the trees, or are we being distracted by what I call the monkeys? So I want you to think about this, and there isn't really a right or wrong answer, but think about this. If we think about lifestyle as a forest, the concepts, the idea that a healthy lifestyle matters, what does that mean to you? What does it not mean to you? It's going to look different from everybody. What I hope tonight and what this particular picture means to me, presenting this information, is I am seeking to find a path, not a very rigid path as you can see here on the screen, but a path that you can get on that feels right to you as you go through the forest. Because one of the goals is to start focusing on the trees. Habits are trees. Exercising or moving for 5 minutes, that is a tree of lifestyle. Choosing to eat something maybe like a vegetable or a lean source of protein is considered to be a tree. Skipping that sugar sweetened beverage is considered to be a tree. So we are going to focus on forests, but we're going to really talk about the trees tonight. So the quote about don't lose the forest for the trees doesn't necessarily apply. What I do want you to think about is what I call the monkeys, which is all of the confusing information, all of the confusing advertisement, the people that are like, oh my gosh, I did this thing and it was the most amazing thing ever. Please, please take that with a grain of salt and try to avoid things that distract you, those monkeys. There, again, is no perfect cancer diet, no perfect cancer exercise plan, or lifestyle strategy. So I want you to really think about this should be personal to you. So I'm going to go into each of the six pillars generally, and then I'm going to give you a couple of specifics from the data that we have in lifestyle medicine. So when we think about nutrition, we focus on kind of these four things. Honestly, I don't know if there is an exact best order for these. I think it really depends on the person. But I can tell you when I read the research, I work within the academic practice and the implementation practice. And I really think if there's one thing that you can start with, it is reducing processed foods, highly processed and even moderately processed. This picture is all highly processed. And we all know we shouldn't eat this, but what about those things like those like fried chickpea snacks? Should you eat those? Should you not? They're plants, but they're fried. And so I'll give you a tool in a second to kind of make this world easier for you. But I want you to think about if you do one thing, it's let's reduce the processed foods as much as possible, both for physical health as well as a lot of our mental health, thinking like neurodegenerative diseases, chemo brain, cognition, memory, etc. When we're thinking about what to do, having a plant predominant eating pattern somewhere around a half to two-thirds is ideal. Plants isn't all fruits and vegetables. It's things like whole grains. It could be rice or potatoes. It can be a multitude of things that come from plants. We also know that, especially in the cancer space, we want to have adequate protein. This has really become much more important over the last 5 to 10 years because we know that protein helps your muscles repair. And what happens after a cancer diagnosis is that those muscles really take a beating, not just from the change in our activity levels, maybe the change in our overall physical well-being. We might be sitting more, we may not be eating the same things, but often a lot of individuals go through hormone changes, medication side effects that are really detrimental to the muscle. We know that for someone after a cancer diagnosis, the average loss of skeletal muscle is 10 times normal aging. So people say every day, I feel older. And I say, exactly, because you have lost so much muscle mass, which then, of course, affects your connective tissue. You've probably lost bone density, and it happens at 10 times the rate. The key is you can turn it around with the right lifestyle habits, such as what you'll learn in Happy Feet. And then, of course, we want to think about calorie balance. And that is because weight and body composition is definitely important when we're thinking about managing cancer as well as the risk of other chronic diseases. So, really quick, what are some of the tips that I have? Well, sometimes having a full meal on whole foods is hard. Sometimes we're in a hurry, we need to grab food out. So often I really encourage, can you have a whole food snack? A fruit, maybe some carrots or something crunchy, could be nuts or seeds or something like that. It could be even like a bar or another thing that is more packable, but thinking about whole foods as snacks can be very versatile. I also think about whole foods plus the olive oil, cheese, yogurt, fish, and poultry of the Mediterranean diet. There is a lot of controversy, especially right now, over plant-based versus plant predominant. Can I have meat? Can I have chicken? We know that the Mediterranean diet has the most evidence behind it, both for cancer as well as other chronic diseases. We know that the foods that are incorporated into this dietary pattern are actually considered to be safe and often anti-inflammatory overall. So when people are like, what's a plan to follow? This is where I lead back to and something we've been doing for at least a decade in my work. And then when we think about getting protein, often we do need supplementation to meet those protein goals, as you kind of see on the screen. They are often much higher than we think to preserve that skeletal muscle mass. And again, this can be not only difficult to get with food, but also very cost prohibitive. And so having a protein supplement that you can use to make a drink or a shake or make in a meal, there's a lot of options for this, but it's something I definitely recommend in conjunction with your exercise strategy. But how about let's make it fun? If you've not seen this app, this is something I added to all the presentations I've done, both with clinicians and patients and colleagues over the last year. It's called Yuka, Yuka. It is a free app. It does zero advertising. You can pay for the premium for $15 a year, but you don't have to use all of the great features. What you simply do is scan a barcode on your phone when you go to the grocery store or you're shopping, you're on the go, you pick up a label at a convenience store, whatever that is, and it will score your food based on 0 to 100. And it'll give you a yellow, orange, green, or no, red is the other one. Not yellow, red, orange, or green, based upon how processed the food is, and then kind of tell you why. It is predominantly going to give you that information to reduce those processed foods when you're grabbing anything that has a label on it. I love this at the grocery store when I see, 30 different kinds of a granola that my husband has asked me to pick up. And I don't want to read every label. It's going to take me 20 minutes. It's a quick way to scan and find the foods that you want. And I put this little image on the screen because I live in Denver right now. We live downtown and I'm very close to a Whole Foods. So I don't shop there all of the time, but I walked into Whole Foods recently and this was exactly what was on the shelf in front of me. And I looked at it and I thought, so I see unsweetened creamy peanut butter and then creamy peanut butter spread, no stir, right side by side, looking almost exactly the same. And the question I would have is, if you don't know which one you should pick, often people be like, no stir must be better. I don't like that separation. But really, the one that's on the right has palm oil in it, which is not only a not great saturated fat and has no nutritional value, is considered to be a more processed food. But again, these sneaky labels, even at a store like Whole Foods, is something that we see every day. So that Yuka app is a quick way to scan your foods. And I also put up here a canned food as an example. You don't have to necessarily buy everything in the perimeter to get high quality. There are plenty of things that are canned. A package here, this is a Kroger brand, a very generic brand of salmon, high protein food that you can get. And again, scored an 84 out of 100 and is shelf stable. And that pack was around $2. So I want people to feel confident going down various aisles of their grocery store, building up their pantry, especially on those days that you don't feel like heading to the store or making something that takes a lot of time or energy. All right, pillar number two. The feet, of course, is going to love this pillar, which is going to be exercise. So, one of the most important things about exercise that really wasn't included in the cancer space was that strength or resistance training. We didn't include this into the recommendations until 2018. So, remember, I back up my career all the way to 2003. We were really just telling people to walk. And although walking is healthy, it was thought that if we were giving people drugs and medications that were damaging to the heart, they needed to walk. But what we realized was that walking, although beneficial, didn't do as much for fatigue in many cases. It didn't do as much for function. So, individuals that might be struggling with just getting back on their feet, getting dressed, getting all of their things done in their day, climbing stairs, weren't really seeing the improvement until we started adding strength or resistance training. So I say 2 to 3 times a week. If you follow the Happy Feet protocol, you're right on that recommendation. This is full body movement. This is something that actually should be challenging. So I put that on here with pink dumbbells because I want to say that challenging doesn't mean you need to add a lot of weight, but I want you to work at an intensity or a functional status that it makes your muscles work hard. Doesn't have to be the most vigorous thing you've ever done, but you need to feel those muscles in the activities that you're doing. If you're new to exercise, you're just getting started, this is going to take you a few weeks. But if you have been exercising and doing strength training or any type of exercise for a while, I want you to think about this on a scale of 1 to 10. Your 0 to maybe 4 is light, your 4 to 7 is considered to be moderate and kind of on the top to challenging. So at the end of, say, your bicep curl, I want you to feel those muscles. It should feel challenging. Again, this could be a 1 pound weight, it could be body weight, it could be 10, whatever it is, make it challenging to you. Also, I love to really reiterate that things should be functional. This is an image of a movement that's known as a deadlift. This is actually one of the most complex, not complex, compound exercises that exist because it uses your legs, it uses your core and your belly, and it uses all of your upper body in one movement. For anybody that likes to work in their yard, this is a really critical movement. For anybody that has a pet and they have to buy a big bag of dog food or carry something up the stairs, this is a really critical movement. You can do this with body weight, but what I want you to think about with functional is how can you do movements that incorporate more than one joint? That really makes something functional. And then last but not least, make sure that you build some time in every single week for recovery. This could be walking, but this is actually going to be much more beneficial when we're doing active recovery that targets our joints. So think about like stretching, some types of yoga, Tai Chi or Qigong, which have a lot to do with balance. Building something in your week with recovery is really critical to allowing your muscles to repair and then get ready to grow and get stronger. So, most important things about exercise are here. Now, Jen mentioned the 150 minutes of activity per week as a recommendation, or 120, whatever the recommendations are. Yes, strive to those, but really think about first before you just strive to read the number. Make sure you're doing things that actually dial the needle up so that you're feeling the difference. Because if you're just taking a walk every day and you don't feel any better, it's going to be hard to maintain motivation. So think about doing things that you actually notice the difference in. That will help you continue this habit long term. So, my exercise tips, there are so many of these, but my first thing I tell people is just start. I love to talk about exercise snacks. Right now, I've been doing this thing over on an Instagram page that I have on strength snacks, and they're everything from just flexing and pulling your shoulder blades back to, lifting one knee at a time in a seated position. Because what I want people to realize is you don't have to go to the gym to get in strength snacks. So just start, even if it's a minute, it really does count. Yes, things like shoveling count. Yes, things like house cleaning count. Just think about planned activity and just get going. Anything that you do that you're not sitting on your duff is definitely beneficial. Following YouTubes or virtual programs can be very useful. Happy Feet is really a unique program, which is so phenomenal that it has in a built schedule and YouTube and content that is available. But maybe you can't come to the classes, maybe you're looking for something a little different. There is a lot of virtual content that exists. And people always ask me, is it safe? And I will tell you, if you have balance challenges, really be mindful that you're putting yourself in the safe position, maybe starting seated. But most of the time, the things that we're doing and following on YouTube, we, especially, I find this in the cancer population, are going to be much more cautious about our body, ourselves, to not go crazy on following a YouTube. So I actually love this idea of being able to dabble from the comfort of your home before sometimes putting yourself out there. It just feels nice to start when nobody is watching. If you are uncertain about where to start, you have again a built-in exercise team and program here. But if you know somebody and they're looking for where to start, just always keep in mind there are many amazing cancer rehab and exercise professionals, especially now, here we are in 2025. I have no idea how many there are, but there are thousands. And so I think that's pretty cool. So now, I always say, like, how many of us don't exercise because we don't have time or we don't have energy? So today here, you're gonna join me if you want to. You don't have to, into what I call a Tabata workout. So I didn't come up with this name. Tabata was actually developed by a researcher, an exercise researcher named Azumi Tabata. It is a Japanese researcher who, after World War II, was looking for a way to make exercise effective in a short period of time and came up with this as one of the early formats of interval training. So a traditional Tabata is you do something for 20 seconds, followed by recovery for 10 seconds, and you do 8 rounds. This is only 4 minutes. For the sake of time tonight, we are not going to do all eight. We're going to do four. So we're going to exercise for 2 minutes together. So I'm going to go ahead and going to come back so you all can see me. I'm going to do this seated and I'm going to set my timer up. The two exercises that we're going to do, I'm going to back up. Hopefully you can see me in my little chair, is I'm going to do a chair march. Okay. And then the other one I'm going to do is an abs. So I'm going to turn and I'm going to try to bring my knee up and bring my elbow to my knee and the opposite. So we're going to do 20 seconds of one followed by 20 seconds of the other. Okay. So if you are ready, sit up really straight, sit at the edge of your chair and go. We're going to go into those marches. Now you can do this standing if you want to. You can just do legs if you want to. You can just do arms if you want to, or you can do both. Remember, it should be challenging, but not too difficult. So whatever is challenging, not too difficult, you do 5 seconds. Three, two, and rest. Now, wherever you are, pull your belly button in, pull your shoulder blades together, tighten up those booty muscles that you're sitting on. We're working our core while we rest. Let's do those abs. So, knee to elbow and switch, knee to elbow and switch. Now, again, you can do this one standing if you want to. This is a great way to challenge your balance, but you don't have to. 10 seconds. Good. As you return all the way up straight, straighten those belly or straighten up those abs and rest. Okay, same thing. Pull the belly button back, tighten your booty muscles that you're sitting on, make those muscles work. They're not on vacation. Marching again, ready and go. So, same thing. I want you to try to pick up the intensity. If you want to make it harder, you can make those arms and legs bigger. You can add a little bit of rotation if you want to. You can stand. You can do this with weights or soup cans. 5 seconds. This is a great one when you're watching TV. Good. And rest. Same thing. Pull those shoulder blades back, sit up really straight. We've got one more 20 seconds together, which is going to be those abdominals. Ready? And begin. So I'm going, trying to get my elbow to my knee. I'm trying to lift that leg up. You can also just do the arms and fold. Every time I want you to come back all the way to straight, working those back muscles. We really want to focus on the back end of the body, not just the front. Almost there. Three, and rest. All right, great job, everybody. Maybe a little toasty warm. Hopefully, you did as well. Denver has been chilly, so that is always very nice. So there is a lot of great ways to do kind of interval training. One reason I love interval training as well, there's something nice about setting a timer. There's free apps you can, there's YouTube videos. It's like somebody tells you to go and stop, and you don't even have to think. And I think that can be really nice when you're just feeling maybe a little overwhelmed and don't want to really think about exercise. You can kind of have a little built-in coach. Okay, so let's move into the other pillars that are a little bit more lifestyle as far as we know overall well-being, but maybe don't have the clinical evidence behind them. And the next one we're talking about is stress management. I feel this is one of the hardest pillars to really define because if we look up all of the feelings, emotions, and physiological changes that fall under stress, there's something like 60 to 70. And we may feel overwhelmed. We may feel frustrated. We may feel nervous. We may feel fear. And all of these are bucketed into stress management. So, whatever situation that you're thinking about or emotion is completely appropriate to you. We know that stress can be acute or chronic, and this simply means it can be short or it can be ongoing. So, an acute stress might be something like I was trying to drive to work, and somebody rear-ended me in my car. And that is an acute stress that happens in a moment. It doesn't happen every day. A chronic stressor could be something like we know financial stress, especially after cancer, is so significant. Worrying about paying my bills. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to meet all my copays. I definitely know I can't go to that appointment, or having to make choices on how to use my finances for things as simple as what foods to buy. And that is a real and very concerning chronic stress. We also know that stress is healthy and unhealthy. So, healthy to the body, right? So, as an example, exercise is a great stressor for the body. Learning something new is a great stressor for the mind. A cancer diagnosis, a very toxic coworker or family member are all considered to be unhealthy stressors. Having regular processed food is considered to be an unhealthy stressor. But remember, individually defined. So, what happens when we experience stress? So, whether we know this or not, our body is designed, our parasympathetic nervous system is going to go into these three modes. There is kind of another one that's coming to the surface as far as being defined, but these are the three that we know. We go into fight, flight, or freeze. And this is because we come from sort of that prehistoric beings that we didn't know if we're going to have to run from the tiger or we're going to have to chase down our next meal. And so those stressors will create these behaviors. And you may notice that when you are feeling stressed and overwhelmed, you go into one of these lanes or both or multiple. I know that for me, definitely when I'm very, very stressed, I am very, very happy to go into the flight mode. Don't want to deal with it, don't want to talk about it, just off I go. I also know that, like the freeze attitude of stress eating, I always kind of find myself when I'm feeling very stressed with my nose in my pantry looking for something. And I tell myself, stress management is not in that jar of peanut butter. And we may have this habit that actually happens when we are noticed that we're having a lot of stress. So, the most important thing to think about is the stressors that we have control or not control on. What I want you to really focus on is the power of using breath work as a stress management strategy. And the reason why is so many stressors in life are things that we have little or no control on. They come from outside influences. Yes, we might be able to really focus on having the right attitude around stress, but when you are stressed, having the right attitude is very challenging. And I don't expect people just to be like, yeah, just be positive. This is a horrible situation. So instead, I recommend, and the science really supports the power of using breath work as a stress management strategy. There are so many options for this, and we're going to take a few of these together as practice. So, one of the best things about breath work is you can do it anytime, anywhere, and nobody even knows because you're already doing it. So, if you're going into an appointment and you're feeling stressed, you can just take a moment and do a little bit of breath work. You could be trying to fall asleep or just talking or listening to somebody or something that is just making you feel very tight and tense, and you can practice breath work. So I'm going to give you a couple of my favorites. I gave you a whole list here of different things because I feel that this is a little bit of a menu. But let's think about relaxation for a moment. We'll kind of go a little bit backwards. So a relaxation breath of any kind is when we hold the exhale longer than the inhale. So just take a little breath in and then let's exhale 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're going to do it again. Just take a regular breath. Exhale 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. If in the moment today you're feeling a lot of stress, you're feeling kind of heightened, that long exhale is going to feel like you are at your last breath. You will notice if you keep doing that in a stressful situation, that long exhale is just going to feel easier. It's just going to be that simple. Now, I also know that fatigue is the number one most reported side effect in cancer. So let's think about breath for energy. So instead of doing exhale, let's focus on the quick inhale. So if you think about taking a quick inhales or sips of air, we're just going to do three together, just and then we're going to do it again, just and then go back to normal breath. You'll actually get a little oxygenation in your body and your brain. You'll be able to focus, you'll be able to kind of take on that task. It's a really great, simple tool to actually find that energy just to do the next thing or have the energy to feel a better about a situation. And again, there's a lot of other breathwork pieces that you can do. Yoga breath is really popular. I don't follow yoga breath well because I'm a terrible counter. So people give me the 6, 7, 8 bit. I find myself getting confused. So that is actually not one that I practice, but I have lots and lots of friends and colleagues who love this breath. I think one great way to put relaxation and energy together to create what we know as real-time de-stress is two quick inhales with a long 5 count exhale. But my favorite is the happiness breath. So this is the one where we have a big sigh together. So it's a, and just try that. And just notice that relaxation of just letting something go. And you might even find a little bit of a smile on your face when you do that kind of breath. And again, there's a lot of other options. Box breathing is another one. And then I've been really definitely sharing with people, and rather than taking a nap, where sometimes it might be hard to fall asleep or we stay asleep too long, to utilize what's called yoga nidra or non-sleep deep rest, which is really known as a body scan. So it's a meditative practice. You get comfortable. And what you do is the person that's speaking to you, there's lots and lots of options on YouTube, might say to you, tune into your right ear and now your right shoulder and your right elbow. And it's a great way to shut your brain wheel off and help relax you. The downside for me doing too much yoga nidra is I always fall asleep. So I can only do like 10 minutes because anything longer than that, I am napping, not napping. So, but it's a very great tool. So for sleep, I'm not going to go a lot into sleep as well, but the sleep quality measurements we use in clinical and research is actually all five of these. I find this a really hard when I'm working with people that have been impacted by cancer or just have dealing with life's stressors in general. So I really encourage people to think about quality sleep is that we strive for 3 of 5 on a generally consistent basis. Feeling refreshed when waking is a hard one for me to define. I think it's very, very subjective. I'm a morning person. I pop out of bed and I have the same personality with or without coffee. It does not matter. This is me. I'm married to a non-morning person who I don't really speak to for at least 90 minutes prior to, or especially anything in depth, right? So, whatever it is you are, I think it's important to think about your routine. What matters for sleep is to have routines, both morning and evening. This is set schedule, doing the same things when you wake up in the morning and the same things before you go to bed. That actually sets the rhythm for sleep. Having a regular stress management practice. People tell me that they have a difficult time falling asleep. This is a great time to practice breath work is before bed. So it's thought to be a stress management practice, also helps with sleep quality. And then actually exercise has a tremendous impact on sleep. In fact, a new study was published just this last year that showed that people that did 30 seconds of squats or sit to stand, it doesn't have to be a fancy gym squat, had on average 30 minutes better per night of better sleep than individuals that didn't do exercise before bed. So people say, well, I shouldn't exercise before bed. Maybe not a run 5 miles, but 30 seconds of a sit to stand or squat has actually been shown to improve sleep. And I think that's kind of a really cool tool because it also doesn't take very long. And that is very, very nice when we're all busy. So social connections is another really important pillar of lifestyle. I don't know if anyone had seen this, but last year the American Cancer Society published a really large research paper looking at lack of social connections and isolation in the survivor population as an impact on mortality or death. And it just reminds us that connecting is really critical. I think it's important to think about there are different kinds of connections. So when you're thinking about connections, I would love you to think about these four bullets that you see here on the screen, which is what do you need or who do you need in your bubble to help you feel connected? And the four that I have are people or groups that listen, people that you can just spill it all out to, and they have open ears, they're just there to be there for you. People that encourage you or groups that encourage you that might say, you can do this, you've got this, I believe in you. We always kind of need that, little bit of encouragement. People or groups that inspire you. They inspire you because maybe they have done something you've inspired to do, or they've maybe been through the type of cancer or another situation that you have, and they inspire you that you can do it. And then the last one I don't think we talk about enough is that person or that group that nudges you. And I say this is the nudges can be the carrot or the stick, whatever means it works for you. But we all need that person in the world when we're like, I just don't feel like it. And they're like, you said you could do this. I know you can do this. Just do it. They're that person that kind of nudges you when you don't feel like it. And this can be really important, especially when we're focusing on lifestyle and we may not be feeling motivated. So these are my top four when we think about social connections. And then lastly, I want to think about the risky or unhealthy habits. So we talk a lot about smoking. We talk a lot about alcohol. Maybe not. Alcohol's really got a lot of press lately. I don't know if anyone saw, the Surgeon General's warning with alcohol. This is not new to me, but I was excited to see that there is an increased elevation of the risks, and I think it's important that we do know the risks. But the other two habits that we really don't focus on enough that have tremendous evidence for individuals with cancer is one, decreasing sedentary behavior. So this isn't, I have to meet my 150 minutes of exercise per week, my 30 minutes a day. But when I look at my day, and I think about the number of hours that I'm sitting doing nothing or watching TV, working at a computer, doing a project, playing a game, whatever it is, it's decreasing that behavior as much as possible. And I do find this hard some days for me when I'm stuck at my computer. So I try really hard to build in habits because the average adult in the United States per 2022 data sits 9.4 hours when they are awake. So yes, we have sleeping time, but are spending 9.4 hours just sitting doing nothing. So I think it's really important to think about as you think about not only an exercise program, just take a minute and move maybe after dinner or get up during the day and just take a little extra lap around your house. It doesn't have to be fancy, but just reducing long sedentary behavior. The other evidence piece habit in cancer is reducing sugar sweetened beverages. I would say that this will definitely roll to added sugars, which we have recommendations in all adults, especially cancer survivors, to have no more than 35 grams of added sugar per day. But if you walk into a Starbucks, you order a vanilla latte just off the menu without any changes. A grande vanilla latte at Starbucks has 35 grams of added sugar. That is the top amount that we should have in a day. And so, what we do know is the evidence that we've really seen has been in sugar sweetened beverages in the cancer population. And so, this is just why I emphasize it. But yes, added sugars. The Yuka app is also very useful for that. And then lastly, I want to think about reminding us that I say this with both medicines and supplements, avoiding ones that we don't really know what we have benefit for, just taking because we heard about them. Even sometimes when we think about, I have a lot of joint pain, I'm achy, and we take Aleve or anti-inflammatories all the time. A lot of these things have negative side effects. Anti-inflammatories, as an example, are really detrimental to connective tissue over time. And so if you have a lot of osteoarthritis, maybe you're feeling a lot of achy joints, taking Aleve may feel good in the moment, but is slowing down the recovery and repair. So we want to think about these things when we're considering the long term of that as well. Okay, lastly, because I want to raise a few minutes, I realize we're so far out of time. Where do I start? I think it's really important to think about, one or two places to start, not all six or seven or 10 or whatever, focusing on things that are simple and accessible and really minimizing expense, both time as well as pocketbook dollars. When we focus on expensive strategies, they're hard to sustain. So really focus on low barrier ones. I just put this up here, Jen. I'll share this with you. There are some recommendations when people ask about labs that I always recommend that for the best labs of overall kind of wellness and lifestyle that we consider to make sure we have fasting labs, but I won't go into a lot of that tonight. Lastly, I did share, I
Oh,
have a lot of resources that I'm happy to share with you all. And I'll share links that Jen can send out after. So if you want to get a hold of any of the resources and more implementation, I have plenty of these, but that I won't go into all of these tonight. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing. Um, do we want to stop recording?